welcome to another future classic episode of Retrovaniacs. As always, I'm your host, Jeremy Parmentier, and as always, it's my pleasure to introduce the other host of Retrovaniacs, Jeremy Gregory.
Hey, hey.
And Billy Holiday.
Hello there.
I would like to start the show with a small apology. It's running a little bit late. I had some technical problems, and that technical problem being that I didn't have the board. So I've got the board now. We're recording a little bit late, but we plan on still sticking to our every 2-week schedule. And possibly adding another show in between just to kind of fill some time out in between the main Retrovaniacs episodes. So, again, I do apologize. We shouldn't run into this problem more often. But, hey, no problem. That gave us more time to play the game of the week. But before we get to that game, what have you been playing, Billy?
I have been playing mainly just two games. My work's been crazy lately, and my time there has greatly increased. By the time I get home, I'm working the evenings now, so when I get home, I've got about 2 hours, pretty much before I go to bed. I've been playing an awful lot of Rocket League, though. I picked it up just because it was free. I didn't really know anything about it, and I was sort of put off once I started playing and realized it was just a bunch of cars knocking a ball around, just playing soccer and whatnot. But I had several friends that were playing it, so I kept playing, and I found it's one of those, even if you don't like it when you first begin, you can really catch on to it and really enjoy it, which I do now. And also, I had played the game Bastion on the PC a while back, and I saw it had popped up on the I don't know how long it's been on the PlayStation Store, but it was on sale, and I was just browsing it. And I think I was wanting to look at screenshots, but I had rendered myself intoxicated that night, and the next morning found out I had purchased it. So I feel responsible now, so I'm also replaying it.
That's the best reason ever to play a game. Accidental drunk purchase.
It's not the first.
So you've played Bastion before and finished it, so you're just playing it again now.
I'm playing it again now, but I mean, I'm about a year and a half removed, and it was an excellent game. It's certainly, it's not painful replaying it again.
No, I liked Bastion. I got it on one of the, I want to say the Humble Bundle sales, I guess, a while ago, and it was one of those games after I played, I was like, why have I never played this? It's really straight up my alley for what the kind of games I like, so can't recommend it enough. But if you played it before, you already know that.
Oh, of course.
Well, I finally finished completely, best ending, Persona 4, which I'm very proud of because it's the first role-playing game I finished, the right way in a long time. I talked about it a lot the last two episodes, so I don't want to talk about it again. But then I found myself just blazing through another game. I finished Uncharted Golden Abyss, also on the Vita, which is actually very similar to today's game in many ways. I mean, it's definitely more advanced because it's a newer game. But it's that sort of... It's not quite just an action game. It's also kind of an exploration, puzzle, jumpy sort of game. I really liked it. I never played the other Uncharted. It reminds me a lot of the newest Tomb Raider, which I liked a lot too.
I think if you really like that one, you would. Have you played any of the other Uncharted, or did you just say that? I wasn't actually listening.
That's fine. No one should listen. It's totally fine. I was kind of rambling. No, I don't have a PS3. I plan on getting a PS4, and I know they're making an Uncharted collection, so I'll probably pick that up because I really did like it.
The Golden Abyss is actually really good for a Vita game. I know a lot of people don't like playing full games on the Vita, kind of the games that work best for like playing it on an actual console. But I thought Golden Abyss, for what I played of it, was a really solid Uncharted game.
Well, those people don't have two small children that take up their TV. So for me, it's the only way I can play a full-length game. So I appreciated it immensely, not just playing a shooter for a few minutes on my Vita. So, no, I really liked it. I think it's definitely... I guess I'll talk about it a little more later, but it's definitely a lot like the game we're going to talk about today. But what have you been playing, Jeremy?
Billy kind of stole my thunder with Rocket League because that was totally what me and the girlfriend have been playing most lately. And we actually really liked that game. We hated it when we first played it. It was one of those games where we jumped in with a friend and they were playing 4 versus 4, and it was just complete chaos. And we could not understand what was happening. It seemed completely impossible to control. But we kind of just played it with me and her one night, kind of like co-op. And we ended up really, really liking it. It's kind of become a staple just about any night. So really that's about all I've been playing. The other game that I'll talk about will kind of be maybe more fitting towards the end of the show.
All right, well, aside from those games, we all also been playing the game of this week, which is Blackthorne on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, and this is another one that, and once again, I have no clue how, walking through the video store, I passed this one up. I had never played this one and really had never heard of it until last episode. And I looked at the box art, front and back. I don't know what I was thinking as a kid passing this one up, but I'm always excited to try out, older games that for some reason I missed over the years. And I've got some good to say about this one. I've got some bad.
I guess this game was on my list, and I'm not really sure why. But it's just one of those games that, as a kid, I played, and I just kind of, it was all right. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. But as I was growing older, everyone kind of considered this game to be like the pinnacle of this genre of gaming, like out of this world and flashback. So I always wondered if I was actually missing something with this game, and I really wanted to play it now to see if I was. So I guess that's one of the reasons I kind of wanted to pick it up now and see maybe just what I was missing.
Well, I remembered this game. I had not played it previously, but I knew about it because it was one of the first Blizzard games, Blizzard being the company responsible for Warcraft 2 and StarCraft, which I wasted my entire college time on, and then World of Warcraft, which I wasted the remainder of my life on. So, it was definitely a company I had heard of and a game that I was interested in, but knowing that it was nothing like the other games they had made that I did know, I didn't hunt it down. It was also older at the time. But now that I've tried it, I don't know why I avoided it for so long, because it's the kind of game I like. It's not quite... It looks like it's a straight-up, run-and-gun action game from the box art and pictures, but then when you actually play it, it's way much more than that. It's a lot more like an out-of-this-world mixed with more of like a Golden Axe kind of feel to it, I guess. The combat is more involved than a regular out-of-this-world style combat, I guess. So it's definitely the kind of game I can see that I should have played more of, and now that I've tried it, I really, really like it. So I'm glad this was one that was on your list, unlike some of the other games we've tried so far.
I see there are a lot of people still denying that General Chaos was not a great game. It just blows my mind. But yeah, Blackthorne is it's just one of those games that now that I played it today or for this podcast, I don't really have much to say either way for it. It's just kind of it's a decent little game, but I'm sure we'll get into this. But I'm glad we actually played it for the podcast anyway.
But I have to say with this one, regardless of what I will go on to say about it, my first impression was really strong because it has. Forget that the story is a pretty cliched type story, but the intro I thought was the sound and especially the animation. Well, and the graphics for it, excellent for the Super Nintendo at the time. So I started off with very hopeful, and I didn't try to jump in. There's actually a practice mode, and I kicked it off with it, and I got a sinking feeling first time I took a step. And it wasn't until I took a jump that it hit me. It's that goddamn animation and control from Prince of Persia. And I don't know why I let Out of This World off the hook, because I love Out of This World, and it's every bit as, movement's every bit as slow and monotonous as this game, but I hated Prince of Persia for the animation, for the you can't take a single step. Every step forward covers a few blocks, and the jumping mechanics. But I hunkered down. I tried to get used to it and tried to enjoy the game the best I could.
I kind of like those. I like that kind of maneuvering, like this game has, or like you said, Prince of Persia or Out of This World. Any of those where it's definitely responsive, but you have to go through an entire animation of whatever it is you're trying to do. You can't it's not as tight of a control scheme as a shooter would be, or something where it's got a lot of jump mechanics to it. This is definitely a very, very planned steps. If you're going to jump up to a platform, there's no way to not be lined up properly and look like you're properly lined up. You will clearly be in a straight line from the platform you're trying to jump up or down to.
Yeah, I mean, it has its good. I mean, the bad is just it's very, and I don't know if it's because I've been playing a lot of faster paced games. I mean, with this Rocket League and with Arkham Knight before that. It's just the best I can describe. The character moves like RoboCop from the RoboCop films. You turn, you holster your gun, pull your gun. You turn, you take a step. It was just really slow, and especially when you're trying to draw your weapon, when you encounter an enemy, I usually found myself getting shot right off the bat before I could even pull my gun out.
All right, first off, I can't let this one go. How in the world can you give Out of This World a pass, but you think Blackthorne is slugged? Now, I love Out of This World. It's one of my favorite games ever. I actually played through it, the entire game, just for this for a video review that I did this week, and still loved it. But that game is almost unplayable. And the best thing I can say about Blackthorne is that it's still completely playable. They did an amazing job with this sort of control compared to something like Out of This World and even Flashback. Everything seems to react, super, super quick whenever you actually press the button, unlike those games where you've got to plan ahead a good second or two before you even press a button. So I'm not quite sure where you're coming from with saying Out of This World gets a free pass, but this one doesn't somehow.
I could have a very long, detailed reply, but I'm going to go with I don't have to answer to you because you enjoy general chaos.
we can't keep using that as an excuse, though. That only works for like an episode or two, maybe. But
I would say it's a strong.
We're going to get 3 or 4 episodes out of it.
It's just a strong pair of nostalgic glasses. It has to,
and that's what it is. I mean, I can admit that. Out of This World at the time, was just a really groundbreaking game, and it's one I rented over and over again. And I'm sure if I went back to play it again, I don't know, maybe I would judge it in a bit harsher of a light.
Well, if you
want
to
play that one now, try to play that one now. It is rough. I mean, you've got the remaster. I don't want to get too off topic for this game, but Out of This World, like doing the remastered versions is fine, but you go back to that Super NES version, and it is almost unplayable.
You could do what I did and buy the iOS version and just hate yourself.
Oh man, I should do that.
It's completely unplayable. I love it, but it is misery. But let's not talk about that anymore. We'll go back into the game we're supposed to be talking about, Blackthorne. The movement, you brought up the about holstering your gun. So because it's a Super Nintendo controller, you only have so many things you can do. So you actually, if you have your gun pulled out, which is, of course, a button press to pull your gun in and holster it, the buttons do some different things. Some of them are no big deal, and there are some things you can't do with your gun out, like you can't climb into things or open a door or really do anything of value other than shoot things and hide when you have your gun out. But what I did learn is the Y button if you hold it down, makes you run if you don't have your gun. But if you do have your gun out and you push the Y button, you aim behind you and just blast whatever's behind you, which most of the time for me was a helpful native. I don't know if that happened to anybody else, but I found myself often trying to run somewhere and just blasting a guy in the face who just gave me an item.
Well, that's what he gets.
You know what I do have? That is, and I made a note, and I talked about a drunk purchase earlier. Don't think I have a problem, but I was intoxicated many nights when I played this game. And I have a note here. It's typoed, but I can make out sorry-ass prisoners. And what a bunch of sad sacks. It's I curse this life. If only I had a bomb. If only I had a levitator. You know what? I think if that guy had a bomb or a levitator, they still wouldn't do anything with it. They're content, hanging by their chains or drilling into whatever they're drilling into. I don't know about you guys, but I made it a point after I spoke to each one of them to put them out of what was obviously their misery.
I actually spent a good deal of time when I first started playing this now trying to save them. Because for some reason, I was completely thinking that it was more like Abe's Odyssey or something, where you could save these poor people.
Oh, yeah.
You can't. I mean, they just hang there. And the ones that are off wandering around, they don't really do. Some of them will give you like a health potion or a bomb or something like that. But for the most part, they don't do anything for you besides give you like a helpful little tip. Like bombs will blow open a door or something like that. But beyond that, they serve zero purpose. And I really don't understand why they're in the game at all, besides just being there.
Well, it's to give you motivation, and they do help you out. I mean, they give you items you need. They will upgrade your gun at certain points in the game. So it's worth talking to them before you shoot them. But once they've given you the thing you need, you can feel free to shoot them as many times as you want.
I think it would have been a little bit more satisfying if they would have just let us save them, though. I mean, that they kind of just seem like a waste. They might as well just have a bomb floating in midair or something sitting there instead of those guys. I don't feel sorry for them. I don't want to say, kill these guys anymore, but it would have been a little bit better, maybe as far as like wanting to complete these stages, if I could save them and know that there was like a running tally of prisoners that I'd saved.
Or like in Abe's Odyssey, which you brought up before, if you saved so many throughout the game, or so many were alive, not that you saved them since they don't do anything but stand there, but if you didn't kill any, you get a... even if it's an extra scene at the end, or who knows, it's just always something that makes you feel good about doing that little extra bit of care, trying not to just run to a room and shoot everything after you've gotten your health potion.
Yeah, I just didn't care about them at all, since I really couldn't do anything with them. So I think that was a slight complaint beyond the other complaints that I have with this game.
Now, this is on several different platforms. I think it's on the PC also. Is that the case on all of them? Was this just limited hardware-wise? They had to cut some things out, or were the prisoners just kind of pointless?
No, that's just how it was. The PC version was the original version, and then it was ported to the Super Nintendo and the 32X, which I played. I actually played the 32X for some reason.
Oh.
Well, it has an extra world, which we'll get to. I guess now is a good time, really. So the main game, if you played on Super Nintendo, which was the one we chose for this show, there's actually 4 types of stages. I guess there's 16 or 17 stages total, but they're broken up into categories. So you start in the caves, and the first 4 levels are in the caves. You can't go between levels, so if you finish a level, you're on a whole new set of maps, basically, like a small Metroid-y map, so you can go anywhere nothing's making you just go right or left. You can go any direction you want to go, but sometimes you need an item to continue in a direction. And that's what makes most of the puzzle there. Like, we mentioned that the natives say things like, I wish I had a levitator. So there are some levels where you find a certain enemy, which most of the beginning enemies are orcs, or like these big, tall troll guys. You'll kill one of them. They'll drop most of the time bombs or other items. And then one of them will drop a levitator, which lets you essentially make yourself a platform that floats that you can then use to get to another higher platform or higher place. And that's the... once you've gotten through those areas, you go to the next area, then you can't go back to where you already previously were. So the first set is the caves, and that's where I spent most of my time. That's where it's mainly, you'll see most of the prisoners that I ran into that were true sad sacks in the caves, because they just sat around moping and doing nothing of value. Not one fights back. They just kind of sit there and say things like, yeah, I sure wish I had a bomb. Meanwhile, there's a bomb laying right next to them.
And there's so many of them. They clearly have them, and they're all pretty, pretty built guys. Surely they can handle themselves.
So you'll go through the 4 cave levels, and again for most of that it's almost like a tutorial. Yes, there is a tutorial you can actually play at the beginning of the game, but these definitely teach you how to play the game, teach you what the items do, along with just bombs that'll blow up doors for you, or you can use them as weapons. You'll get like these scarab beetles that fly around. You control them once you use them, and then you can make them fly to a certain area to blow up terminals or again, use it as a weapon. Almost everything has a weapon function. You'll get through the caves, and at the end of the caves, you meet, I don't remember his name, the magic wizard. I don't know what his name would be.
That's good enough.
And the magic wizard then says, "Oh, I'm here to help you," and he warps you to the next area, which is some sort of jungle forest area that's on the Super Nintendo very, very much just purpley and green. But that's where you finally run into natives that actually do something. They seem to fight other darker-skinned natives, and I don't know if you guys had the same problem I did, where I didn't realize the difference between them, and I couldn't figure out why some of them were shooting at me, so I just killed all of the natives.
Yeah, it seems like, sometimes, I guess it's like the dark purple guys are the bad natives, but sometimes you walk into a screen and then you've just got 2 or 3 of them shooting at each other, and you don't know what the hell's going on, really.
The other thing I noticed with that set of worlds in the forest worlds, combat gets significantly harder once you're introduced the purple clothed, slightly darker skinned natives. The orcs you fight in the very beginning in the first world, they'll fire their gun at you, and then they fire 1 or 2 times. It's kind of slow, and then they stand there for a second so you have a chance to shoot them when you come out of cover. These guys shoot much faster, and as soon as they are done firing, they get immediately into their own cover, so you can't shoot them with your gun. I don't know if I'm the only person that had problems fighting them, but I definitely
I had a real hard. I had the same trouble. Well, with the orcs, it kind of teaches you, and I thought it was teaching you the system you would kind of use throughout the rest of the game. You let the other guy shoot, you hide in cover, you'll have a brief opening. You can pop out and take a shot. Once you upgrade your gun, you get a couple of shots off. But it all goes out the window. Not only did they shoot quicker, they came back quicker, and they really didn't have a set pattern. And from what I observed, it didn't seem they had a set number of shots. With the orcs, it was going to be 1, 2, and I think maybe one guy sets off 3. It gets very random. And I was very thrown off by it. Like I said earlier, I thought they were kind of establishing with the orcs the system you would use for the remainder of the game.
I know those guys are super unforgiving, especially once the caves or the prison camp or whatever it's very forgiving. You can definitely pop out with your gun and even miss a few shots and not take any damage for it. But once you get to the tree level, things tighten up a lot as far as like what sort of timing you need to do. And it's very unforgiving, and you learn really quick that you've got to have some very, very precise timing if you're going to manage to get through this.
And maybe that's why I didn't get any farther than the forest levels. I made it to the second forest level. I died a lot to things that were just extremely frustrating, aside from when I would do really well and then somehow just get into a gunfight with one of the guys. I just couldn't get my timing right and then died. There are plants that hurt you when you walk into them, and sometimes they just show up on the other side of a screen when you switch screens. The levels are much bigger than the caves as well, or at least they seemed that way. And I got not lost as much, but I just felt like it was just going on forever, and I would get frustrated, then I would die. And one of the major problems I ran into, and I guess if without this the game would have been very, very easy, is when you die you go back to the beginning of the chapter you're in. So if you die and you're at the very last part of a stage that you spend half an hour kind of figuring out, then you've just lost that half an hour. You have to go back to the very beginning of the stage. You don't have any of the items you had acquired. You don't have any of the progress you made. You just basically start over fresh as if you just showed up there.
And that's I didn't make it much further. I think we actually probably quit right around the same point, and it was the same thing. And I mean, I gave it a good go. But yeah, the resetting back, because you pick up a good stockpile of items along the way, and to lose all that and to get set back, and yeah, in the cave, I thought the map it wasn't huge by any means, but it wasn't too small. There was enough room for exploration, but you never really lost your way. I found once I got to the forest stage, there was a lot more just kind of getting lost, wandering around, and unfortunately, that was around the time I just kind of started to get a little bored with it in general, and then throwing in the dying and having to repeat the last 30 minutes certainly didn't help.
Yeah, and this was the stage where not only all of those reasons, but I quickly realized that this is one of the most bland-looking games I've ever seen in my life. It is just, it's very, all the colors are very dark. Nothing really stands out. It's just this kind of weird, dark sci-fi look to it that's not appealing at all. To me, anyway. Maybe somebody out there really loves some Blackthorne, but to me, it just looks awful, and I can't keep my attention with it for very long with a game that looks like this.
Yeah, and I think that is certainly a problem. And like I said at the beginning, I thought there was a lot of promise with the intro. I thought the graphics were really well done in that. But once you get down to the game itself, yeah, everything's kind of dark. It has this kind of washed over look to it. Not a lot of differentiation in the backgrounds, and I think that probably contributes to the boredom. Is there is nothing exciting to look at on the screen whatsoever.
I think the animation itself is good, but the Super NES by far is just a very bland looking game. And when you go over to the 32X version, it's got this kind of like mid-90s CG look to it, where all the characters look like they're these plastic 80s action figures, like He-Man or something, and it kind of helps, but still, it's just not a good-looking game, no matter what you play it on.
I think I looked at the PC version as well, and I think it's not a bad-looking PC game. I just think the conversion, again, this is back in the time when each system, even just the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo, a game that released on both of those looked very, very differently. Now, like Dragon Age comes out on the Xbox One and the PS4, and it looks different, but not that different. I mean, if you were just looking at stills, unless you were really looking at detailed stills, you wouldn't know which version it is. Where this is a pretty, notable difference between all three of those versions. And I didn't even look at the Game Boy version, but I guarantee you it looks totally different.
Yeah, the Game Boy Advance version, it's actually pretty comparable to the Super NES version, but the color is so blown out because that kind of came out back on when the Game Boy Advance had no backlight. So any game that was on there, that if you could see it at all, the developers had to up the brightness or color to max. So that game is, if you play it on like an emulator now, or even like a Game Boy Advance, like the one that has the backlight, it's so super colorful, but it still doesn't look that great.
So Billy and I got to the forest levels. Did you get through the forest levels into the next area, the desert?
I got right to the desert, and I died once, and I said, I don't want to play this game anymore.
Yeah, the desert shows you another couple new enemies to fight. I think they're like stone men. But basically, that's one of the other problems. So not only are the levels kind of bland looking to begin with, but they're also kind of long, and they're all like the caves all look the same. There's no like extra set of graphics in the later levels of the caves. All the caves look exactly the same, and all the forests that I saw looked exactly the same. And the desert's even more the same. The desert just looks like rocks and brown the entire time. And again, that's 4 or 5 levels of just rocks and brown with about 3 or 4 different enemies total. And also the music. The music there's not a lot of different sounds to the game. There's not a lot of different songs. I think each area has its own song. So there's a caves song and a forest song and the desert song. But you're going to spend a good deal of time, even on a speed run, you're going to spend a half an hour in each of those places hearing the same 45-second clip of music. So, I think
it's kind of, I'm sorry, but it's just none of the music sounds great. And, even on the Super NES, but especially when you go over to the 32X version and you hear that Genesis version of this music, it is enough to make your ears bleed because it is so shrill. And now, I'm not saying the Genesis sound chip is bad. It can sound really, really great for people that know how to use it. But it just seemed like they were trying to filter the original music into the Genesis sound chip. And oh my God, I actually had to turn the sound off within the first 10 minutes of the game because it sounded so bad.
Yeah, and it's just a case of just a game that, I knocked the controls earlier, but and maybe this is part of why I enjoyed Out of This World. For a more interesting looking game, I could maybe forgive that and keep moving forward to see what's ahead, see what the next levels look like, see what happens story wise. But this one really doesn't. It's nothing. It gives you nothing nice to look at. There's nothing good to listen to. The gameplay gets extremely repetitive. This is kind of the definition of if you've played a few minutes, you've pretty much seen and done it all.
Yeah, once you get through the caves, there's not a whole lot new to introduce you to. There's some new things to fight in the same way you've already been fighting the orcs, and there's new maps to look at, but they're the same sort of layouts. It's everything's more or less like a little square area that leads to other square areas, and you find gates and you put keys in gates, or you find a lift and you put a key in not a lift but like a bridge that needs like an electric bridge, I guess, that you need to put a code card into. I mean, but it's all the same thing over and over again. That I just think now we're not used to something being quite that repetitive. I brought up that I was playing the Uncharted game, and it does have the same kind of problems in some ways where the levels are just kind of the same. You're running through a dig site and you're shooting people, and then you run into these old ruins and you shoot people. But yet, it stayed far more interesting. The levels were a lot more streamlined in a lot of ways, so you didn't have to do a lot of backtracking. But also, there's the power now to make, even if you're in literally a square room over and over and over again, to make each one of them look different and interesting.
I think this game, even comparing it to something like Out of This World and Flashback, it really lacks that sort of those wow moments with a game. And I hate to use words like that, but with Out of This World, you had this amazing setting that things were constantly changing. And Flashback, the same thing as well. You never knew what you were going to get in the next stage, and things were always changing up a little bit. To whereas this game, it is just the same thing over and over, just with a different tile set used for the stage, and it's super, super repetitive. More so, I think, for this type of game than just about any of the other ones that I've played in this type of genre.
Well, I think the problem with that is also one of the reasons I liked this game at first, where some of those games are a little hard to get into immediately. Like if you've never played a game like Out of This World or Flashback or Heart of Darkness, when you first get into it, it's unforgiving. If you do the wrong thing, you'll play the first 3 screens 25 times till you eventually figure out what to do. This is not that mean. You can fumble through this, and as long as you don't just, over and over again walk into a guy's bullet or jump off a cliff or do something that's clearly incorrect, because you have a health bar, you have some chances to learn what to do. Out of This World, it's kind of like one hit and you die, and there's a lot of ways to die that don't make any sense. Like, a good example in Out of This World is in the very beginning, you're running by those little worms, and you wouldn't think anything, they're little worms. But you run by it, and it has some kind of like poison fang, and it rips your pants, and you die immediately. Well, great. So there's nothing in this game that's that mean, But instead, it makes it so it doesn't seem as dangerous, and it's just kind of boring. So instead of fighting one guy that could kill you in one hit, you're fighting 50 guys that you probably won't die to.
It's kind of like an action game that doesn't want to be an action game, or it wanted to be flashback, but it didn't want to. It wanted to be an action game as well, and it's just kind of trapped between those two things. And I know there's a lot of fans of Blackthorne out there that's going to be screaming, in anger for this, but I don't think Blackthorne is even as good as Out of This World. It's not great. It's so long and it's so boring at times, and I understand why people like it and everything, but when you're trying to say that this is the pinnacle of the genre, I don't know what you're talking about with that.
Yeah, and it's just, I think they went for two styles that just don't work together. This system, the Prince of Persia, it worked fine with the sword play. It worked fine for Out of This World. This does not work well with a run and gun, because you literally cannot run and gun in this game. And the cover, the duck into cover and the shootouts, I think it's just one of the more boring forms of combat I've encountered in a game recently. I think, it's just two, like I said, it's just two styles that just don't mesh well together.
Well, or not even that they don't mesh well together. They found two things they like and they try to put it together, and it just didn't work as well as you'd think.
Yeah.
I mean, it was passable, and I guarantee if I would have had this game when it was new, I probably would have been amazed. Because again, the first couple levels, you're like, this is a really cool idea, but it just never grows from there. Really, it just kind of gives you more of the same. Did anyone bother to watch the last area? The final area is you go back to the Shadow Keep to fight Sarlacc, the main bad guy, and it's again more of the same till you get to Sarlacc, and then it actually has a boss battle. But imagine trying to do a real boss battle with the kind of controls we've been talking about. It's not a run and gun by any means, so it's kind of like a lot of positioning and hoping and not hitting the wrong button and not doing something by accident. Meanwhile, he's going fast. I mean, he basically warps back and forth around the bottom of the screen and shoots fireballs at you, and he also has like these lion guys on the top of the screen that will shoot fireballs down on you. Nothing else in the game is like this, and yet you get to the very last guy, and it's an actual, like an action battle.
I'm actually watching this right now. I didn't get to earlier, but yeah, looking at this boss, it is. I'm not sure what they were trying to go with this one. I really hate the last boss in Flashback, but this one seems like it could be worse than that one.
Well, I guarantee you, if I would have made it to this boss, as a kid, even now, if I played it as far as to get to the boss now, I would have just stopped. After a couple tries, I've been like, this is ridiculous. They threw a real action boss at the end of this game that's not an action game, and it would just be the most frustrating thing I've ever played.
Yeah, and I encountered the same. I watched the video of it, and nothing in the game prepares you for the style of fighting for that last boss. He is the complete opposite of everything you learn over the course of the game as far as combat goes. I don't know what they're going for. Maybe if there was more stuff like that throughout the game, one, you'd be prepared for it, and maybe two, it would, I'd be a little bit more interested in it. But yeah, as it stands, I can't imagine playing through the entire game at the pace it keeps and then encountering this boss.
I think the big thing on this for me is I figured the last boss would be something you have to think your way through instead of just literally just blast your way through it. I mean, there's not... Yes, you have to have some finesse to blast your way through it, but there's no... you don't find some items and then set off this chain of events that will doom the last boss in like a Dragon's Lair style ending. That's kind of what I expected, but instead for it to just be a straightforward, like you show up and he's like, now I'll kill you myself, and that's it. That's the end of the game. I don't know. I just was not expecting that as an ending.
Well, to be honest, I wasn't expecting. I hate to keep bringing this up, but Flashback's final boss. Do you remember that at all?
I actually didn't play that much of Flashback. I liked it, but I didn't have it. Out of this world, I played a lot of, and again, I mentioned Heart of Darkness, which was a later similar game. I played that the whole way through, but I did not play all of Flashback.
Flashback does the kind of does the same thing, where the last boss is just this. It's kind of out of nowhere, and it's completely just the most impossible thing ever. But still, I managed to beat that one. I don't know how I did. I was a kid and I had way too much free time on my hands. But at least that with that boss still stuck within the boundaries of what it had already taught you before throughout the game. This one seems like Billy said, it just seems like it wants to be an action game boss all of a sudden. And I really think Blackthorne would have been a better game if it would have just been an action game with a few puzzle elements. I don't think it needed this whole kind of rotoscoped animation that these other games had. It's neat for what it is, but I really think it would have been better off just being a slower paced action game.
Yeah, I agree, and that's what I thought it was. Until we played it for the show, I always thought it was just a kind of either a slower or kind of a more detailed action game. But no, instead it's this weird blend of two different kinds of games that just never really gels properly.
It doesn't, and I think I agree. All three of us agree. It would have been better, maybe as more of a Metroid type. Kind of the you got the exploration. It's a little slower paced. You can run and shoot. There's not a lot of ducking for cover, but you still have to think. Also, I think they could have done a much better job. But if anything from this episode, I think what we've taken away is you should probably just play Out of This World instead.
Yeah, play Out of This World. Or Flashback. Play those two games, or even Heart of Darkness. If you're looking for a great example of the genre, this is not it, because I don't think this should be really considered for. If you're trying to compare this to those games, this is not a good game. It's just not great, even compared to like Abe's Odyssey and stuff like that. I just don't care for it in that type of game.
I don't think I'm that harsh on it. I definitely enjoyed it. I just think it was the kind of game I could play the first 5 levels and be content with. I think if I would have forced myself to play a lot more, maybe I would be a little more surly right now. But I don't dislike it. But if you happen to have an active Blizzard account for Diablo 3 or StarCraft 2, or if you still play World of Warcraft, you can download this for free through Blizzard directly for PC. So, I figure everybody on Earth has one of those games or has one of those accounts still. So, if you wanted to play this on PC and it's totally free, I can't think of any reason not to at least try it.
Sure, try it out. It's still a perfectly playable game. You talk about these other games being so great, like Flashback and Out of This World. I think Blackthorne is actually a much easier game to play now than if you were wanting to sit down and play Out of This World or Flashback.
Yeah, it's much more accessible. They start you off with a training mode, if you want, and like Jeremy P said earlier, it kind of eases you into the game. This game, it's not for me. That's all I can only speak for myself. It's not for me, but I could see how a lot of people would enjoy this. So certainly, by all means, it's worth a go, probably.
It's a very strong recommendation.
Well, it's the strongest one I can muster up.
I think for me, just the biggest thing is just how many years have gone by where everyone is just like, Blackthorne is the best. And I had a lot of hopes for this one as an adult to sit down and play it again, and it's still just exactly what I thought it was as a kid, which is just kind of a sort of okay Out of This World, or that kind of game. So maybe if I had never played those games, I would think Blackthorne is amazing. But just taking it on for what it is, it's not great for me anyway.
Now, Jeremy, you said you played the 32X version. They do have an extra world in there. After you finish the caves, there's some kind of like frosty mountaintop set of levels. I don't know if it's just one level or a lot of levels, but it was exclusive to the 32X. I don't know if it's somehow has different gameplay in it or anything, or is it just more of the same?
It's just more of the same. The 32X version is just the other games with a slightly different kind of ugly coat of paint on it. but the extra level that I looked at, I didn't actually get to it, but it's still just more of the same.
So I guess we can all say that it's definitely worth trying, especially if you can play it for free, but probably not one we're going to keep going back to.
Oh, never again.
No. This is the last time I think I'm ever going to play or give a second thought about Blackthorne for the rest of my life.
I will play Out of This World again, though.
Definitely.
So that's going to wrap up our coverage of Blackthorne. But much like every show, we normally have a listener question. Now, we did not receive a listener question for this week, which is okay, but we did get another iTunes review. We got a fourth iTunes review. We're up to 4 now. This one from Burmart, who likes to remind everybody that for the first episode, I tried to call myself JP. So I'm never going to live that down. Thanks, Burmart. But also thank you for the 5-star review. So again, you can rate us and make fun of us all day long, but please 5 stars on iTunes. That would be a big help. So since we don't have a listener question, one of the things that came up because I did finish Persona 4 and I did finish the Uncharted game, do you guys care at all about trophies, achievements, whatever you want to call them? The collectible, not even collectible in-game, the out-of-game, kind of BS 100% stuff. Are you guys into that? I'm really not.
For me, it depends on the game. I've recently encountered this with the Arkham series of games. The last one was a bit of a trudge to get through, but I 100%ed it. Oh, well, I think we had spoke of it maybe last episode. They actually give you a small reward for 100%. You get kind of an extended ending. But I had really set out just 100% it just because I had the previous ones. And I know it doesn't make sense to say that I have to 100% this game, because obviously you don't. And I can't really tell what pushes me to do so. I know every now and then I'll text Jeremy Gregory, and I will tell him, almost threaten that, hey, I'm going to 100% GTA 5. And I'll play for about a half hour, and then I'll put it down. I don't think it's ever going to happen. But as far as the trophies and achievements go, when I first got a 360, I really did not see the appeal in it. I think it just seemed like a way for a developer to kind of squeeze a little bit more playtime out of a game after you would ordinarily maybe just put it down. But I would have very weird phases where I would just become obsessed with getting all the trophies from one game or all the trophies or achievements that I could. And those were really miserable times. Like, I was playing games solely for the purpose. And I don't get it about the people that there are people that play it just to, raise their score up or their number of trophies up. I was playing just to accomplish the one task to get this trophy or this achievement. I wasn't playing to have fun. And really just one day I just snapped out of it, and I decided, I'm just going to play the games just for fun. If I pick something up along the way, that's great. But I just can't see myself getting back into that, achievement and trophy hoarding mode I was in for a while there.
And I want to say this now while I have the chance. This is probably the only chance I'm going to get to say this. But Billie Holiday actually 100%ed Alone in the Dark on the Xbox 360. I don't know if any human has ever sat through that kind of torture before, but he did it. And it's one of those things I'm never going to let him live down, because that is like trudging through garbage for 150 miles straight to get nothing from it.
Well, let me tell you something about that, because we will probably never bring this game up again. But now that it's out here in the
Wait till next week's random pick.
Yeah. Yeah, I played Alone in the Dark on the 360, and I'll take you one further. It's with a small amount of shame. I'll admit I paid full price. I plopped down $60 for it. $60 I'll never see again. And I played through, I was a few achievements shy, and I had no intention of playing it again. And then it was the sickest I've ever been. Probably in my entire life that I can recall. Running a fever, 103, 104 with the flu. And I remember sitting down in my living room. I had my bucket next to me since I was no longer able to walk to the bathroom to throw up. And I was going to play a game. And the next thing I knew, I woke up the next morning in my recliner. And I apparently had played Alone in the Dark. Not only that, but I had picked up the excess achievements that I have not priorly picked up. And not only did I 100% Alone in the Dark, but I did so in a feverish daze. And I don't even have the memory of it. I got nothing from it.
Well, I guess that's, for the best, because would you feel better if you remembered every single minute that you spent getting all of those 1,000 achievements for it?
Probably not. I probably would have found myself on a length of rope if I could actively recall it.
Well, I just get annoyed by the achievements when it's things that don't enhance the game. It's not like it gives you, like, if it's a collectible thing, then I get that, because I have that I guess it's an OCD anyway, but where it's, if you're supposed to collect 100 little widgets, even if it does nothing but you can collect them all, there's no way I'm not going to collect them all. Unless I totally hate a game. But if I like it at all, I will go back and I'll play the level over and over and over again until I find every stupid little widget. But a good example would be in that Uncharted game. There's those collectibles and those achievements, and I'll get I'll go back and get those. But then there's other ones where it's like, kill 10 guys with this specific pistol. Now kill 20 guys with this specific pistol. Now kill 30 guys with this specific pistol. That doesn't help anybody. That doesn't make me enjoy the game anymore. That doesn't unlock anything. It just makes you feel like, man, I sure did play that game over and over again and just keep garbage weapons.
I think the ones for me that are the best are the ones that, as far as ones that make me want to get all of the achievements, are games that have achievements that make me play the game differently, or that in a way that I normally wouldn't. I think Geometry Wars 2 did an amazing job with their achievements, and I actually tried my best. I didn't get all of them. I think I got around 800 points for it, or whatever it was. But all of those achievements were really playing those stages completely different than what you normally would. And so I think those are the best. When they're utilized like that, those are the ones I kind of obsess over. If it's just collectibles and stuff like that, I don't really care that much, but it still kind of bugs me here and there. But overall, I don't obsess over them.
Geometry Wars is a good pick, because those achievements do not only to make you play differently, but it's fast. If you want to play the level, like it's pacifism where you go through all the gates, and so one of their things is like, don't hit any gates for 5 minutes or something crazy. But that's you'd never do that otherwise. But it's kind of neat to know I'm going to work towards that goal, and you don't have to spend 2 months trying to do this. Like some of the Final Fantasy ones where it's grind this infinitely to do some ridiculous thing that no one's going to want to do just to get an achievement. My least favorite achievement, hands down, is on Deadly Premonition, which is a game that only I like anyway. But if you beat the game, there's an achievement for doing all the regular stuff you do in the game anyway. But then there's one big achievement to beat the game on easy, one achievement to beat the game on normal, and one to beat it on hard. Well, I played it through on hard, and I beat it on hard, thinking I'd get everything. No, you still have to beat it on easy and on normal. That's annoying. That was infuriating.
Come on. Most games have the decency to stack up. You beat it on hard, you get all of them. But Jeremy P., I'll let you know right now. I'll let you know if you feel like you're alone out there with your liking of Deadly Premonition. You're not alone anymore.
Well, this is marvelous.
I too enjoy it.
I think it might be, and I'm not even being ironic or joking, it might be my favorite Xbox 360 game. I will play it over and over again. I love it.
You guys are insane. There's something wrong with both of you. I enjoy it for it being as stupid as it is, but I sat down and really tried to play through that game, and as much as I enjoyed the stupidity and stuff up from it, but it was so terrible. That game is so bad.
Well, it's not a retro enough game to make our regular list, but I'll have to do something on it at some point, because it is by far one of the weirdest. Not weird like even like they're trying to be weird. It just ends up being a really bizarre game where they just kind of threw a lot of stuff together, and somehow I love every piece of it.
One thing I would like to mention before we stop this is with the game that I beat recently, which was Batman Arkham Knight. I completed the entire game, almost 100%, all the side quests and everything, except for the Riddler trophies or whatever. And I played through the entire game thinking that, well, I'll just clean these up once I finish the game. I didn't realize that once I finished the game, I still had over 200 Riddler trophies to get through. And I can't do that because it's just too much. But Billy mentioned earlier that if you get all of those and 100% the game, you get a little extra ending. It's really not an extra ending. It's actually the ending to the game. Whenever you beat the last boss, you do get a sort of ending to the game. But you don't get the true ending to the game until you 100% the entire game, including those trophies. And that one really bugged me because I really wanted to see that extra ending. I actually looked it up on YouTube, and it's a good ending. It's a great ending to a franchise of games. And it really bummed me out because I just don't have the patience to get all those Riddler trophies.
Well, I suppose that's what YouTube is for, and at the same kind of thing, it's one of the things I enjoy about doing, playing the games for this podcast is you don't have any of that. It's pretty much you play it to an ending and you get the ending, and sometimes there's an alternate ending, but it's never by doing something like collecting 200 bags of something. So it's kind of nice to go back to games that didn't force you to lengthen the game by adding little tasks to do that don't even affect your gameplay. So I don't mind that. So that will be it for this episode of Retrovaniacs, but we do still have to pick the game for next week, and our random game selection will be Keith, Courage, and Alpha Zones for the TurboGrafx 16. Quite an odd choice. It was definitely on my list. No way anyone else picked that.
This is going to be my first TurboGrafx 16 game that I've ever played. So, besides, I don't know if Bonk on the NES counts, but this one will be the first ever that I've really tried to play on the TurboGrafx 16.
Yeah, and I'm in a very similar boat. I have played a little bit of Bonk's Adventure and a little bit of Splatterhouse. Otherwise, I have very limited play time on the TurboGrafx. So this will be the first game I attempt to play through all the way.
It's anyone who's played it before is probably wondering how we're going to get half an hour out of that game, but we'll talk about it next time. You'll have to listen back and see. Please check us out on retrovania.net. We're also on Twitter at Retrovaniacs, and we're on Facebook under Retrovania. Again, please write an iTunes review, and thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.